Tony Britt Spotter Charts serves sports media exclusively with customized cheat sheets for both prep and game time. Serving over 350 clients at all major networks, 23 NFL teams, and 68 college football programs, including Division II, Division III, and NAIA schools. Variable pricing ensures that small schools receive the same VIP service as ABC, CBS, ESPN, Fox, NBC, and the NFL Network.
Chuckleheads, welcome to Voices in the Stands. I am Carlo, the host of Dingo Talk. The Misfits have joined me from their respective sections of the Nosebleeds. We're going to talk about a lot of things. I got PAC talk, I got Centennial talk, some ODAC and NJAC talk. But before we get to me, we got Tony, who's going to lead us with the Empire 8. Then Dave, you're going to talk to us a little bit about what's going on out there in the CCIW. Mikey Shoultz does Mikey Shoultz things. Josh and crew will have the AFC and the Whitewater reports, and then we'll go, like I said, I'll talk about some of the games that I watched this weekend. But, Moose Hogan, I know that things got a little dicey for you yesterday. It was a little touch and go there. I think you guys had it, and then it got real close. Morrisville didn't want to go away. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to not be, I'm trying to be honest because that's what we do here, and I'm not trying to be too brutal. But listen, at the end of the day, no disrespect to Morrisville, a lot of the times, as we all know, whether it's in a football game or you're coaching or whatever, we all talk about flushing the bad moments, right? We always say, hey, you got to flush that player, you got to flush that game, whatever. I've never really kind of looked at it at flushing a win before, and I got to be honest. There's a lot of parts of this win that I want to flush. To be 100% honest. We had Morrisville down 20-0 at the half. Things seemed to be rolling. We really looked like we could have done whatever we wanted to. Nothing really surprised us, at least from where I was looking at what Morrisville was doing. They was heavy on the run, which was expected. That's what they do. And I really kind of thought, we really kind of came, back from the second half thinking that it was going to be a layup. And it was very odd things happening on offense. Some, inherent snaps that were happening that weren't kind of typical. Although there was a lot of great catches, there was some passes that were, in the hands and dropped. And it just looked like, wow. I really don't know. I felt like we were really playing down. And again, no, I don't want to disrespect Morris, but they're having a tough season. They're 0-6 now. They came to the game 0-5, obviously. And, they're trying to find their way. So I don't want to kind of knock on them. But they did exactly what a team in their position is supposed to do. They were gritty. They were fighting for it. They were not just going to just give Utica the win. And it showed. And it took everything in our power towards the end to not lay that up. The big story here was a little bit of the sloppy play there. There was a weird sequence in the game where it felt like every other play, there was a player injury. So we had some injuries. Most of the guys came back. There was a couple of guys that didn't come back on the Utica side. Really weird vibe overall. But in the end, Nick DeForest, Jordan Davis from the defensive line. Nick DeForest had 2 big-time sacks to basically take the game on his shoulders and say, we're not losing this game. And that's really what it came down to. Consecutive back-to-back sacks, which really sealed the game. Again, Jordan Davis had a remarkable game. Isaiah Thomas, 17 tackles, came in to kind of take the mantle a little bit. After there was I guess the kid behind in front of him went down, and really had a phenomenal game. I think 17 tackles was tied for the single game record, 10th overall single game record. Really good stuff on defense. Utica had total yards 354. Passing yards 249. Again, we're getting kind of spoiled where we're saying, it's only 249 yards. Rushing yards was 105 for Utica, which is pretty good. Morrisville only had 230 yards overall, 94 passing yards, which is really no surprise, and 136 rushing yards. We all kind of knew that's where they were going with it. Penalty yards, 8 for 82 on Utica's end. Again, we kind of went back to like a little bit of the sloppy stuff that we didn't like to kind of see before. 23 overall first downs, 8 for 13 on third downs, which was not terrible. But again, overall, it just really seemed like a weird game. And I'll be honest with you, we're going into the bye week now. I think we're at that point of the season where folks are licking their wounds a little bit. And it's grinding and the kids need a little bit of a blow. I like the bye week for Utica this week to kind of get back into sync. And listen, again, I'm not going to be probably on everyone's Christmas list for saying this, but I feel like if we play like this against Alfred, we got a problem. Alfred is a bit of a gritty team. Alfred University, they have given us fits in the past. We're going to them. They are not just going to lay out and just give it to us. So I think Utica needs to do what a team like Utica is trying to do, if that makes any type of sense. In other words, the teams that we're supposed to handle, they need to go in there and they need to handle them quickly, expeditiously, and get the backups in by halftime. And I'm calling it just like that. Literally, yes. You need to go in there, get up big, and get the backups in by halftime. That's the difference between a good team and a great team. And it's really what you have to do, right? Do we want to be good or do we want to be great? And I feel like this team could be great. The Ravens set was huge for Utica this week. Matt Pelouris scored 3 of those touchdowns and a kind of our Wildcat set. And I really do feel that there's a lot of good things to build on there, but a little bit of a wake-up call. Teams are not just going to lay down for us just because we've had some success and have some grinds. Every team in the E8 is going to play us like it's a bowl game, especially the ones that are not kind of doing well. This is a shot for them to get a little bit of recognition. They're going to give us their best thing from here. It's not going to be easy. Any game here on in is not going to be easy. Even Hartwick is scoring points. And again, no disrespect to Hartwick. They're on the bounce back, you know what I mean, a little bit. But even Hartwick is scoring points in games. They're clawing. They're coming back. They're giving teams that are not used to it a little bit of fits. No one from here on in is just going to be like, here you go, Utica, have this win, and we'll see you next week. They are not. And we're building up towards the last game of the year for Utica. And again, not to kind of shed, too much in the future. The last game for Utica is Brockport. And that's going to have a lot of implications on where things lie. By that point, Brockport would have met up with Cortland. What happens there? If there's, 2- and 3-way ties potentially, like all that crazy math stuff that I'm not really good at comes into play. But the one thing that we do control is going out there and winning each game and going 1-0. And if Moose Hogan, he killed half of this bottle by himself because he was flipping stuff upside down watching that game. And again, I've never seen someone act so irrational over a win before, but Moose Hogan was definitely running up and down this place with his hair on fire. End of report, sir.
Now, Tony, I got to ask, from what you've seen from Utica, are they one of the, or if not the best 2-loss team right now in the country? I mean, we got a lot of 2-loss teams. One of those teams is a team that you beat to open the season. I think that they end up winning their conference. I'll talk about that a little later, W&J. There's going to be at least one 2-loss, maybe a 3-loss team out of the WIAC. The CCIW has a pretty good 2-loss team in it. I may not rank them in my top 25, but that was my eye test. So I'm just wondering where you put them as a 2-loss team.
You know what? Again, I have to take the emotional part away, obviously, from the rational part. But I really do believe that when Utica is playing their brand of football, when they're protecting the quarterback, and that kid has enough time to really read and scan the field and play that that RPO the way he does, we are a problem for most teams. For most teams. Now again, it all depends on who shows up on that Saturday. If we play like we played on this past Saturday, I'll be honest with you, we're gonna get scraped up and down the field. And I'm just being honest. And again, some of the Utica fans and maybe some of the coaches might not, be happy that I'm, saying that, but that's the honest truth. If we play like we did on Saturday, we have to literally flush that win like it never happened. We got to come out of the bye week and really get back to basics and go 1-0. But to answer your question, yes, I do feel like when we're playing our brand of football, we are a very, very dangerous 2-loss team.
All right. Heading to the CCIW, Matt, I believe you're going to lead everything off, and then David's going to talk to us about what North Central did, which is kind of rinse, slather, repeat of what North Central does. So, Matt, go ahead. Talk to us about the CCIW.
Yeah, appreciate it, Carlo. Well, what a day in Bloomington, but not for the Titans. Wheaton Thunder, no longer the murmur, as Dave would say. Came in and absolutely dominated the Titans, but, they cruised to a 65-21 victory at 2G Stadium. I mean, from the opening whistle, Wheaton's offense was electric. For Cucci, who was actually questionable, I think, to start the game, was nearly, flawless. I mean, he tossed 5 touchdowns, 220 yards through the air. Ben Jiska, Whit Jewett, each hauled in, scores that set the tone early. Brett Dieter on special teams took a kickoff 61 yards to the house. That, really led to Wheaton's first half 36 points on the ground. Matt Kreider, he ripped off a 49-yard touchdown run. That was all part of Wheaton's 177 yards at over 6 yards a carry. The Titans are good. Granted they're playing the Thunder, but quarterback Dermot Smythe, 323 yards, ran for 2 touchdowns. But the Titans just couldn't keep pace. At the end of the day, that's what the Thunder do best, right? Is they figure you out in the first quarter, and then they kind of keep you at bay for the rest of the game, unless you're North Central. Let's be frank. Wheaton's defense, they tightened up when it mattered. They forced 3 sacks, 2 picks, and they held the Titans to just 1 of 13 on third down. That's pretty big there. So they moved to 4-2 overall. Again, they're looking to try and be that number 2 team from the CCIW into the playoffs. Let's go to Wash U. Now that was a great game. Carthage, early on it looked like the Firebirds had total control. Now the Bears pulled off a 31-23 double overtime win at Art Keller Field. Now Bryce Frank, one of the best running backs in the conference, 145 yards, a pair of touchdowns, had a nice 52-yard clip that put the Firebirds up 13-0 in the second quarter. But then really it was over 3. I remember 3 plays. It took him 40 yards. Levi Moore, and then the Bears woke up. Ryan Beinstock, 17-yard score to kind of start to swing that momentum. And really from there, Levi Moore took over. He accounted for 4 total touchdowns. And then he had the game winner in double overtime, sealing the comeback essentially kind of himself to some degree. Fred Ware, Matt Kinoshita combined for 164 on the ground. So again, continuing to do what I think the Bears offense is centered around. It's this run game. Defensively, Brady Wilmer's interception and 3 sacks from Wash U kept Carthage from really kind of finishing drives. Kicker Matthias Androgs, I believe is how you say his last name, 38-yard field goal in overtime, kept the Bears alive. But ultimately, Carthage had 2 throws into the end zone. Both were catchable balls, did not come down with it, that ultimately would have gave them the win. So now we kick it to Carroll and North Park. Now these were the 2 teams David and I talked about around who was kind of the rise and fall in the CCIW. David, Carroll made a good argument for you because they won. So they jumped out to an early lead. They put up 21 in the first quarter. They really set the tone. Charlie King, really I thought demonstrated what I could see: good decision making, completing key throws, including a 49-yard touchdown strike to Carson Crouch. Carroll's offense really relied on the passing game, 230 yards that they had. North Park racked up just 82 yards on the ground. They were really just hampered by negative plays, poor execution, turnover margin. From a defensive standpoint, Carroll's ability to contain North Park's run game and pressure the quarterback kind of proved to be decisive. Now, I believe they lost the quarterback to injury there later in the game, so hopefully he's doing well. And then, Matt Swing's 43-yard field goal in the third quarter kind of extended an already, comfortable lead. So now we're going to get to my Vikings. Dominant win, 48-7 over Elmhurst, which should have happened, right? It's kind of one of those, to me, it's one of those games that you come in and say, show and do what you're supposed to do and what the expectation is. So, Augustana struck early with a balanced and kind of efficient offense led by Jimmy McHugh, who's arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the conference, who, get this, went 25 of 27, 319 yards, 4 touchdowns, and had a rushing touchdown. And also put on tape some designed rushes. So showed what he can do with his legs. Now, Ben Ludlam, good breakout game for him at the running back position. He had 2 receiving touchdowns and a rushing touchdown. Defensively, the Vikings, they limited Elmhurst to just 119 passing yards, 93 rushing. Now, Elmhurst struggled to sustain drives. They managed only, I think, 13 first downs. Augie forced turnovers. They maintained control of the game's tempo. Now, the Vikings also had a new corner step in, Travis Kenzovic, who had 2 interceptions. And, of course, Toby Split, conference leader in tackles, had another 10. He's averaging 11. He's got 55 on the season. He's a dog there on defense. Special teams contributed as well. The best kicker, field goal kicker in the CCIW, Jacob Garbett, true freshman, by the way, nailed 2 long field goals, 47-yarder included in that. He's perfect on the season. He was going to be perfect on the PAT, but one got blocked. But overall, the Vikings showcased great execution, efficient passing. McHugh played through 2.5 quarters, exited halfway through the third quarter there. Nice 4-1 convincing record, convincing season, convincing win. Elmhurst drops to 1-4. They got to figure out what they're doing up there for the Blue Jays, and I had to give them some crap because they had Augustana University. Now, I get it. They don't have an SID in place. Thank you for the reminder from Trevor Jassart, our former SID, who's, soaking up the sun down in Florida now. However, it's your in-conference. Give me a break. It's not Augustana University. Everybody called it out. It's Augustana College, CCIW, not the D2 in South Dakota. So, anyway, Dave, on to you.
Well, great recap, and totally understand. Back before I moved back to Indiana, I lived up in Minnesota for 20 years. North Central happened to play Augsburg, and I got to go to that game, and they kept referring to us as North Central University, and sometimes actually Northwestern University, which is a school that's up there. So yeah, that was annoying. Our president at the time was sitting there, and he was like, it was like what's that? Fingernails on a chalkboard to him. So that was kind of interesting. But I do have to take exception. I don't know. Aiden Ellison would definitely be someone that might challenge your comment about the best kicker in the conference. So we'll see how that plays out throughout the season. But the guy, he kicked a 50-yarder, and it could have been good from 57. And it's just incredible the leg strength that he has. But yeah, and I really believe when you look at some of the teams in the CCIW, like I said last week, I just think, I don't think North Park has gone all the way back to the bottom of the conference where they used to be, but I just think they took a step back from where they had built to last year. And, and we're seeing a little bit of transition. It's really hard to get to a cause and effect, but I think the fifth-year seniors not being as big a deal anymore definitely has an impact there. You also see results of some of the coaching changes, and coaching staffs matter. There's no doubt about it. When you talk about scouting, film breakdown, preparation, installing the game plan, in-game adjustments, if you don't have a staff that can do all of that and do it all really well, that's a disadvantage for your team. So no doubt. But as we get into the North Central game, like you kind of said, Augie, going into Elmhurst, you got to do what you're expected to do. And in this case, Milliken is better than some of the versions we've seen in the past. We've already seen some success that they've had this year compared to the last couple of years where they didn't really have any. And but for Milliken, the problem is, choose your problem. What do you want to deal with? We had Demir Ashrui come in at quarterback, changing some of the angles with his speed, 3 carries, 92 yards, a touchdown, had a long of 46. That has to just put fear in teams throughout the country that might potentially see North Central. You see Garrett Wilson being incredibly, effective throwing the ball, and now you got Demir that's kind of bringing back some visions a little bit of Luke Lane and kind of blazing down the field. And the running back room, I mean, the depth of running backs that we have, so you got Donovan McNeil. He's number 2, 8 rushes for 86. Zeb Rashid comes in. He's deeper on the depth chart, 7 for 73 yards, a touchdown with a long run of 54. Sean Allen, consistent guy. 8 for 42, he could be one of the top rushers in the country if he got the carries. But there's so much talent, and they're spreading the ball around. So the rushing room, 35 attempts, 318 yards, 2 TDs. That's 9.1 yards per carry. And then we get into the receiving room. What a day for Thomas Skokna. Holy smokes. This guy, when you see him in the post-game presser, and you just see, he's just he's just a down-to-earth, authentic guy. He's not, one of these guys that sits up there. He's just seems he's a normal dude, right? 8 catches, 206 yards, 5 touchdowns, a record-breaking or record-tying day. They were talking to him a little bit with Coach Spencer sitting next to him at the post-game press conference. How's it feel, to be, talking about records that, were being set by your head coach. It was kind of funny. But and totally different people caught balls. So, the offense is spreading it around. There's a lot of depth, and, you just can't focus on shutting one thing down because you're going to get burned by something else. Garrett Wilson, an effective day, 15 of 20, 277 yards and 6 tutties. Not bad, not bad. The O-line gave up only 1 sack, but overall, nothing else happens on the offense without those guys. So huge shout out to them. And defensively, the defense traveled. They carried it over from the Little Brass Bell game. They showed up again. They get off blocks. They win that first contact. They turn drives into punts, create long field situations. So they're doing what they're doing. And really what it comes down to for North Central is, it's alignment, assignment, and technique, and that's how you're graded. Doesn't matter what the final score is. When you go into the film room, alignment, assignment, and technique. Are you doing your job? Are you doing your 111th? And it's all about accountability. And one of the guys, I played with him back in the day. His son was on the 2019 national championship team, and he told me, he's like, hey, after the game, he talked, or a day later after film, he's like, hey, that was a great game. What'd you grade out at? He's like, 56. And he's just shaking his head because it's like, man, I thought it was an excellent game. And he's like, yeah, well, I lined up wrong a couple of times and this and that. So those are the details, and it's attention to details like that are going to create a really successful program. So, that's really, the key here. Quite frankly, North Central is on They're kind of on a roll where you expect them to win and win big and get a lot of players. 91 players on the North Central College roster have already seen the field this year. I mean, that's depth, and it's not only shoring up the 2 and the 3 deep. It's about player development for future years as well, and it's incredible. And the other thing too is if you go back and you look at the 2 deep from the very first week for North Central, and you look at the 2 deep now, there's a couple of guys that climbed up and are in starting positions that were not on the 2 deep at the beginning of the year. So when you get into grading those guys later in the game, it matters, and that is how you earn your position as a starter or a backup or where you are on that depth chart. When you're on the field, every play matters. Doesn't matter what the score is. So North Central continues to roll. We expect them to do so through the balance, but there's definitely an upgrade in some of the teams that we're seeing. Carroll will be an interesting one for sure. Wesleyan, for whatever reason, always kind of plays North Central tough. So we'll see how those play out. But on to Chicago and North Park next Saturday.
Yeah, North Central's at North Park, Carroll at Augie, Carthage at Wheaton, Elmhurst at WashU, and the Titans go down to Decatur. So,
all right, so that was the CCIW wrap up there. David, it was very nice to share a beer with you last week and make it over there to the tailgate section. So I just wanted to make sure I said that to you. But Mikey,
I should say too before we jump to Shoultz, I'm going to be up at the Augie North Central game. I cleared it with the true boss of the household, so I am coming.
I see how it is.
Open arms.
If I smell bad, you can tell me. You don't have to make up the whole going to see your nephew thing. You could just tell me. I'm okay with that. I got this.
Did I tell you I'm an only child?
I'm a big guy. No, you didn't, but now I know. All right,
Just
Mikey,
kidding.
talk to us
so many
about,
questions.
No more questions. Mikey, talk to us about what happened this week in the WIAC. I did hear that is the only way to pronounce it, correct? There is no.
It's the WIAC.
No. See, the from Wisconsin told me that it's Wisconsin Sober and it's the WIAC because that's the way you pronounce it. So, Mikey, talk to us about what happened there in the conference that likes to beat the hell out of each other for the next, 5 more weeks, 6 more weeks to go. Talk to us.
Yeah, we've seen 2 weeks of carnage early on within the league. This week was no different. We actually had 2 outstanding games. And I'd like to start with the game that I was at, which was in River Falls. Number 14, River Falls, hosting number 6, Platteville. 2 obviously outstanding teams, defending champions in Platteville. First time I got to see Platteville in person, so I was really interested in how this team would look. They had a lot of turnover from last year. And what I saw, from an overarching standpoint, was Platteville was on their heels really early. They got punched in the nose right away, and they didn't know how to respond. And I kind of thought there was a possibility of that because as I started to look into this game more and get into the headspace of maybe the players of River Falls, I thought, man, they're going to come out strong. So it's River Falls homecoming, huge crowd, 4,000 or 5,000 people at least. Just coming off an opening week loss of a WIAC play last week in Oshkosh. Well, with 1 loss in this league, their margin of error is dang near 0. Like, if they want to win the league, they have to win out already. So their backs are against the wall. You go 0-2 in the WIAC, it's done. I mean, they're done. They're probably not going to make the playoffs. They'll lose 1 more game, probably not going to make the playoffs, can't win the league. So it's all or nothing. Where Platteville was still undefeated, homecoming, all those sorts of things. And they really funneled that right away out of the gates. Very first play of the game, 84-yard bomb touchdown. The receiver, Blake Royer, he mosses the DB, gives them the old Heisman stiff arm, high steps out of his tackle, 84 yards to the house on play 1, and the stadium is just going bonkers. Followed up by a 3-and-out. River Falls gets the ball right back and goes and scores again. And it's 14 rip before Platteville even really knew what hit them. There was 8 total turnovers in this game, though, and that's something that I have talked about with River Falls all year. Is they have a tendency to be a little sloppy. 4 turnovers apiece, and as good as River Falls looked, and I've seen a ton of River Falls football. I mean, I've probably seen 10 Falcon games in the last couple of years. This was as good as they've ever looked to me in person. I mean, they were just lights out. Caleb Blaha, like he always is, was on another level, sharp. The defense, I have never seen this defense play so good. They held the #1 leading rusher in the WIAC from Platteville. His last name is a little hard to say, but Zach Buthin, to 1.5 yards per carry and just 38 total rushing yards from Platteville. This is a leading rusher in the whole conference, and there's some really good backs in this league. They were just dominant on defense. But they just have to clean up those turnovers. You can't do 4 turnovers against La Crosse and expect to win. That just won't fly, and it won't fly in the playoffs either. But this was a really, really good effort by River Falls. If they can box this up going forward, they're going to be a real problem for teams. I've been pretty critical of them throughout the season here, but this week they really made me bite my tongue. I mean, they just looked really, really good. The Platteville quarterback, Nathan Uselding, was the #2 passer in the league coming into the week, and he got taken out in the second half. And I didn't see him in the injury tent. Maybe I missed it. I could have missed something. But they went to their backup in the second half, and that's pretty telling of what this defense was doing. And we have not seen that from River Falls. They got a bunch of points put on them by Co., a bunch of points put on them by Alma. It seems like they figured something out. So that's a huge win for them. And then a little farther east there was Oshkosh and Stout, another battle between now 2 ranked opponents again. This Stout team, everybody, I mean, we got to have a conversation about Wisconsin Stout and the stuff that they're doing. Okay, this is the #1 rush defense in the WIAC. And since they had their run-in with Wartburg where they lost 16-0 in week 2, they have gotten so much better each week. It's hard to even put it into words. We saw them do this last year where they lost to Carroll week 1. One of the worst games I've ever seen any team play by Stout that day. Got their butts kicked by Carroll. Carroll's first ever win against a WIAC in program history. And they went on to get better and better and better. They're doing that again this year after their loss to Wartburg early. Like I said, the #1 rush defense in the WIAC. This was against Oshkosh, who's not a bad team at all, #11 in the country. Just to kind of compare some of these stats to the league's best defense, which is North Central, they actually held Oshkosh to less rushing yards than North Central, less yards per carry than North Central, and doubled the amount of sacks on the quarterback that North Central had against Oshkosh was 6. They also held Oshkosh to 4 for 14 on 3rd down. This is a really, really good defense. They were down 16-0 actually in the 3rd quarter, midway through the 3rd quarter. So this was Oshkosh's game to lose at that point. And then boom, Devontae Evans, 1 play, 60-yard touchdown. They get a stop, they get a ball back, 4-yard drive, Devontae Evans, touchdown. Now it's 16-13. They get a stop, get the ball back, 10 plays, 83 yards, touchdown. Now they're up 20-16. They get a stop, they get the ball back. This was a 5-play, 66-yard drive. Avron Carter, touchdown. Now they get another stop with a Brooks Brewer, preseason All-American, safety for the Stout, interception in the red zone, and just like that, it's wraps. I mean, that's game. Boom, 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 and that's how Stout can hit you. They have a really good quarterback, Adam Moen, who was just lights out, 4 total touchdowns, 315 yards passing. Devontae Evans, a guy that defensive coordinators just cannot seem to find on offense for some reason. 6 receptions, 140 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Stout is a scary team, and Stout and Whitewater next week, Friday night, under the lights. Not too many games next week on Friday night. That's going to be must-watch TV across the country. There's not a lot going on a Friday, so be sure to tune into that one. That's going to be some special football. And the last game I want to touch on in the WIAC was #4 La Crosse and UWEC. This was just really interesting start of the game for Eau Claire, my alma mater. A tough way to start. So check out this sequence. La Crosse gets the ball to start the game. 6 plays, they score 7-0. Okay, La Crosse kicks off the ball to Eau Claire. Eau Claire fumbles the kickoff. La Crosse scores in 3 plays. Now it's 14-0, and Eau Claire hasn't even taken a snap on offense. You're down 14 rip to the number 4 team in the country. Eau Claire gets the drive going. They get across midfield. Drive stalls out. They punt. 4 plays later, La Crosse scores again. It's 21-0. So it's 21-0. There's still 10 minutes or 7 minutes left in the first quarter. You've played a half a quarter football. You're down 3 scores, the number 4 team, and you've had the ball 1 time. So you just can't put yourself in that sort of hole. From there, the remaining 3.5 quarters of football, Eau Claire actually played even ball. They lost 41-21. So from that point forward, it was 21-10 Eau Claire. But you can't 21-20 Eau Claire. You can't put yourself in that type of hole against a team that's that good. Eau Claire actually ran the ball pretty well against La Crosse. Eau Claire's been really good on the ground actually a lot this year, and they showed that again. Their young quarterback was really efficient, 16 for 28 for 200 yards and 3 scores. So they did some good things, but they gave up 370 rushing yards to La Crosse, 8.8 yards per carry, 640 total yards of offense for La Crosse. They just looked really, really good, but you can't put yourself in that hole if you're a program like Eau Claire. And looking ahead to next week in the WIAC, like I said, Friday night, Stout and Whitewater. There's now 6 ranked WIAC teams in the top 20. So that's, 30% of the top 20 teams come from one conference. And one of those top 20 teams is going to finish 6th place, which is like level with Nebraska Wesleyan or something from another good conference, the ARC. Just a really deep league this year again. And then the big one next week that's going to have a lot of eyes. Number 4, La Crosse going on the road to number 13, Platteville, the defending champs, a team that's going to be really hungry and really angry and backs against the wall for Platteville. So that's going to be all eyes on Platteville next week. And before I end my segment, I want to give a new little taste here. I'm going to call it Mike's 5 and 5. So I'm going to give you 5 results from this week that I think were really interesting that I just want to touch on, and 5 games looking ahead. This week, Rowan wins the Breakfast Bowl over Montclair State, 38-26. Franklin and Marshall pulls off a top 25 upset over Muhlenberg, 28-27. Hanover with a huge win over Mount St. Joe's, 45-21. They're in the driver's seat to win the automatic bid there. And how about Monmouth beating Illinois College 48-15? That was a pretty special game. And Barry taking down Trinity 29-6, and Barry now cracking the top 25. That's 2 really good programs there. Next week, 5 games outside the WIAC that might not get talked about on here. I'd love to touch on. John Carroll and DePauw, winner take all right there. That's going to be a really special game. Alma and Albion, 2 really good programs in the MIAA. Kind of a battle to see if Albion has taken a step back or not. They have a lot to prove there. How about Concordia, Wisconsin and Aurora? Big time game there for both those programs. And then Whitworth and Linfield, big one if you're a West Coast fan especially. But as a D3 football fan, the winner of that game is probably going to get the automatic bid. So that would be a really good one to tune into, especially late at night. You get those out west games going late at night. But that's all for the Shoultz report.
So, Shoultz, and then obviously the next segment we're getting with Josh and crew. I just want you to know that, and I'm not going to completely show my notes, but I'm going to show you that I have notes. The top thing is about Hopkins, making the nice little comeback that they did. My second one literally says, WIAC, what the fuck? Because we had it all figured out. We were all sitting here talking. Look at the conference. Look at how good we've changed the level of football. And here we are in week 2 of the conference play for the WIAC. And as I predicted at the beginning of this whole 5-6 weeks ago, it's just WIAC schools swinging at each other, beating the hell out of each other for 6-7 weeks. It looks like it's La Crosse's conference to kind of run away with. I say that not thinking that anything else weird or interesting could happen in the next coming weeks in the WIAC. Mikey, I like your 5 and 5. But let's talk to Josh and Coop. Coop, I know we're gonna limit the UMHB conversation to as much as you feel comfortable talking about, and then we can go on to the ASC. Josh, I understand that Whitewater and Stevens Point is the game that you had this week. Whitewater playing on Friday this week coming. So talk to us about, and whichever one of you wants to go there, Josh, you normally, I think, lead everything in. Talk to us about how the Stevens Point game was and how did it prepare Whitewater for Stout this Friday.
You're happy with a 45-14 win, right? That's very awesome, and that's exactly what this team needed coming off that double overtime loss to La Crosse. This was a great get-right game. Couple injuries, couple illnesses Whitewater had to overcome, so there were some changes to the 60-man travel roster. To my eyes, almost everybody got in late in the game for that blowout. Started a little slow, and I was really surprised. My broadcast partner and I really thought that this was going to be a time where we established our identity, and it was, hashtag pound the rock. And first series, 3 passes and a punt. And it's like, okay, well, that was a little bit odd. So it took a while. Got the ball back, 6 plays, 90 yards, only 3 minutes off the clock. Took a lot of shot plays, a lot of explosive stuff, which was great to see downfield, and Justin Klinkner, the quarterback, trying to move the ball downfield. On the ensuing kickoff, Stevens Point, one of the return men, got absolutely annihilated by one of our receivers, the guy who actually had just caught the touchdown pass on the previous possession for Whitewater. So we recover, 1 play, 14 yards, touchdown. So 13 seconds, 2 scores, it's 14-0. And really, we didn't look back. We had a 24-0 lead at halftime, extended that out, and scored late as well. Everybody got in. Couple of concerning things was running the ball. We had twice as many passing yards as we had rushing yards. We didn't run the quarterback too much, which he's been kind of asked to be, multidimensional in these first 4 games, now 5, but didn't do a whole lot of that. And the backup running back, or the number 2 running back, Noah Battle, was nursing an injury, so he was out. So we had our other 2 guys up there get carries, which was good. One of them fumbled, and then I'm not sure whether he saw the field again, but there were, I think, 3 other guys that carried the ball, which was good. But yeah, the passing yardage compared to the rushing yardage was very non-UW Whitewater, which is, kind of strange to see. But, they did it well. They did it well, which is great. The offensive line gave up 5 sacks, and part of that was Klinkner holding on to the ball a little too much, nobody open downfield, and not using his legs, as he's very adept with, to escape the pocket. He kind of hung in there, allowed things to collapse, and then he didn't have an exit, strategy. So 5 sacks was a little concerning, but again, injury concerns. Your starting left guard is out. You move your starting center to left guard, and then you elevate the backup center. So there could have been some communication issues, and that's a line that doesn't really play together a whole lot in that context. And then defensive line, we're just not getting home as much. I think we only registered 1 sack. There's not a whole lot of stunts and different games going on up front. There's not a whole lot of twists and things like that. We're not getting to the quarterback as much unless we bring a linebacker, which, I know you don't want to do, because La Crosse hurt us in that when we, sometimes picked the wrong gap or picked the right gap and then flew right by Gabe Lynch. So a couple of concerns along the offensive line, but again, a win's a win, points good. As far as the Stout game on Friday, it's the big Wisconsin State marching band competition where thousands of people come to Perkins Stadium. And for the life of me, I don't know how Whitewater doesn't petition the WIAC commissioner when they come out with the schedule to say, here's the band date. We'd appreciate a road game so we don't have to play on a Friday night. For some reason, that hasn't happened, but if my information's correct, this is the last Friday night game for the foreseeable future. But, one less day to prepare for a Stout team that, as Mike just said, and we're watching the whole scoreboard and reporting on things, and that was as kind of a very surprising result to me as anything, given, Oshkosh's last week. And like Mike said, that their game to win, and they lost it. But, Oshkosh has kind of a history more recently of kind of gacking things away. So the coaches aren't going to think this way. Maybe the players will. The announcers certainly do. We owe Stout one. So they're going to come in on a Friday night last week of the Wisconsin high school football season. And I don't know what the crowd's going to be like. I believe the Brewers are playing that night in the NLCS as well, which is going to take some people away as well. So we'll see. We'll see how the crowd is. We'll see how the electricity is. Hopefully the team will be fired up. And, that's a stout team that now with La Crosse right at the top of the division, and they're probably feeling really good about themselves. Coop, go ahead.
Sure. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll just start with the ASC. I mean, there's only 4 teams, right? So there's not too much to talk about. Howard Payne, a little bit of a surprising win. They beat East Texas Baptist, who had started, prior to last week, we beat them. They had started the season 4-0. Howard Payne beat East Texas Baptist 36-18. A little bit of a surprising scoreline. If you dig into the box score, it really came down to fourth downs. Howard Payne was 1 for 1. East Texas Baptist was, I think, 1 for 4. So that's 3 turnovers on downs, and that really ended up being the difference in that game. Our game, obviously, Mike talked about his alma mater, up in the WIAC, and kind of the way that their game started. Ours was similar. Hardin Simmons, they got a great running back, and Noah Garcia is one of the best tailbacks in the country. Scores on a, I want to say like a 35, 40-yard run off the left tackle to start the game on the opening drive. We then, take the ball off of the ensuing kickoff and fumble the first snap, go backwards. We went backwards like on first down constantly, almost the entire game. Punted, they scored. We punted. They moved the ball down the field. We get a turnover. We force a fumble. We're like, all right, we've got some life. We fumble off of our center's butt the next play, gave it right back to him. Hardin Simmons goes up 14-0. And it just felt like that. There was really no momentum for us the entire game, other than forcing that fumble. But then we turn around and give the ball right back to Hardin Simmons. So there was really no point in the game that we felt like we had energy or momentum, which is really unusual for this type of game, this rivalry game. I think I even said it last week. The one thing I wasn't worried about was our guys getting up for this game, having energy, and being hyped for this game, because it's just the way it's always been. But I have to admit, there was not. It wasn't there. The energy wasn't there. Basically, from almost the opening kick, we were flat, which is, that's one of the more concerning things I think I've ever seen. Watching this program play, that's never been an issue, especially with this game. The energy has always been there. So, frustrating outing. 34-7 final. Definitely not. Was not an enjoyable game. I did drive out to Abilene and see it, so not a fun ride home. After seeing that performance, but I texted or I messaged Logan Hansen and asked him. I was like, hey, there's a lot of different scenarios floating around here, as far as playoffs. What are the scenarios in which we can get in? Because I know the ASC has capped the tiebreaker at 21 points, so it doesn't matter. If we lost 60-0, the tiebreaker for head-to-head games is capped in this round robin at 21. So if we were to beat Hardin Simmons by 21, then it goes to, I think, points differential in all the conference games, right? So if we lose that tiebreaker, we're basically Whitewater fans. We're rooting for Whitewater to win out, and then we would have to go to Pool C and have an outside chance to be on the bubble and possibly get in through Pool C. It doesn't seem overly likely, but I wouldn't say that the chances are zero. But that entails us winning out and looking like a playoff team, which we haven't so far this year, unfortunately. So. Not the result we wanted. We still got games left on the schedule, so I'm gonna continue to support my team and cover the team, and I provide coverage for the fans, and I do it for fun. I do it because I love the program. I love the team, so I'll keep doing my thing, and hopefully we can find some positive things to finish the season with.
Well, and conveniently, and I don't want to give away too much of the secrets of what goes on behind the scenes at Voices, but conveniently now, you two at the bottom of my screen are right next to each other, and I have a feeling there's something in the works between that guy from the WIAC and that guy from the ASC, maybe as soon as this week. So for all of you, that's a big teaser. You just keep your eye on the social medias and other things. Josh, welcome back. I hope nobody took your radio from out there.
Darn kids.
So before we jump into mine, my thoughts on a couple games and then our final thoughts, I did a couple weeks ago, the last time I was on the show, we had talked about the jerseys around D3. Honestly, it was Cooper that kind of started this out. And I thought about how we were going to do this, so I'm going to give everybody two jerseys. Pick two. I'll start. Johns Hopkins in the all black this past weekend, which goes into some of the things I want to talk about. Very tough, and staying on the all black. And again, crew, I'm very sorry. Boys of Hart and Simmons, those jerseys were crispy this weekend. We'll start up there. I think, Matt, I saw you floating an Augie jersey around, so.
Bruh.
All right.
I mean, I'm gonna go. I mean, it's hard to say Augie is not one of my favorite, but especially with the old school, Augie script, the gray jerseys are my favorite. But who I thought looked really good this weekend was Coes. The white helmet. Man, they looked pretty tough. Not gonna lie. They continue to look tough there in the conference, but going to the ARC there, Co looks pretty legit.
Now, Josh, you and Tony and David, but I don't like to sometimes talk to David because he kind of side eyes me for every once in a while. And I don't know if I upset him. Them older folk, they get a little offended sometimes, so I don't want him to be upset with me. But North Central is very nice jerseys as well, David. But
they're the Oregon of D3. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
they're the Oregon of D3.
But I will say, Whitewater and specifically the blue-orange combo, and then Whitewater when they go with their all purples and they go with the purple on the black pants. They have a couple good combinations there. And that's not abnormal for the WIAC schools. I've noticed that a lot of the WIAC schools have really cool color combinations and whatnot. Sorry,
I look at it
a little bit of rant.
No, that's good. I look at it differently from a broadcaster standpoint because, to be honest, we have our high schools that have their own colors and I do their games, and it's like all of a sudden they're into black. Well, one high school in town is blue and white and it's a dash of red. Another high school in town is green and gold and a little white. And all of a sudden everybody wants to wear blacks. Well, the way I look at it is I don't care what color jersey you wear. I need to be able to see the numbers. So whatever color combination you want to go with, I don't really care so long as it shows up. So when Whitewater had their away whites with the purples and the blacks, it was crisp. It was good. When Platteville has their blacks with their orange lettering, it is the worst thing I have ever seen on a football field from a broadcasting standpoint. They were absolutely atrocious. The players might like it. They might think it's cool. The fans might like it. It does us no help in the press box whatsoever.
Spoken like a true broadcaster there. I definitely can hear you on that one. Tony or Mikey, do you got anything, or crew? You guys got anything to add? Crew, this was your topic that I took.
Yeah.
And we'd have to go back to that chain a while back now, maybe 2 weeks. So, but talk to us about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of a sucker for the classics, like the St. John's, just with the standard number on the helmet. It's really hard to beat those. Linfield, I think, they were NAIA for a really long time. They were like an NAIA dynasty in the 80s and the 90s. Before, they've got the one Stag Bowl in 2004, but the all white, the Stormtrooper Linfields, with the little cat on the side of the helmet, those are super clean. But as far as like my favorite jerseys, as far as just how they look, take historic history, put it to the side. I love the Carnegie Mellon gray helmets when they wear the white uniforms and the black pants. And then I love the Endicott sea greens. The Endicott, those are phenomenal. So I would say those are my two favorite just on looks alone.
All right, Mikey.
Yeah, Crew definitely stole some of my thunder with the Endicott, SJU. But I mean, how about like the Tufts, which are tough, the baby blues or powder blues, whatever they call them there. Those are really cool. I'm a sucker for like powder blue. I think it's super cool. And then Concordia Moorhead out of northwest Minnesota. They just redid their uniforms maybe last year and helmets. They redid everything. And it's really cool. I think maroon and gold can sometimes be a tough combo to look, sharp, but they've done a really, really good job. Within my home league, I'm a huge fan of the Wisconsin Stevens Point purple on purple with their white helmets. They just did those new last year. Super, super sharp.
Yep.
Tony?
Well, obviously, I'm going to go, home. I'm going to be a homer here. I love the different combos that Utica has, orange on white, orange on orange, blue on white, blues on blues. I think, and they have an alternative gray, which is pretty cool as well. Again, aesthetically, that's always kind of been my thing, and God knows I have enough Utica gear, probably to fit probably a small nation at this point. But some of my other ones, I do love the St. John's. I love the Johnny's red and white, the North Central red and white. I love those colors. I'm a alumni from St. John's University here in New York, so I love those colors. And my daughter graduated. She got her master's from Johns Hopkins, so I do love the Johns Hopkins combos that they put out there as well. And again, I'm just talking from the uniforms that are in my life that I see all the time. So maybe that skews me a little bit, but I think those are the ones that are my favorites across the board.
Well, and it's interesting that you talk about Johns Hopkins, because they are kind of my first off-rip in my thoughts here as I wrote down. 24-7, first half. Whoa, what was that, man?
Oh, hey.
What was that little flash in? Was that David
Come back to that.
in the day?
A little on the fly here. Go ahead and finish that out. I got a little on the fly here.
So, I think, and Mikey, you talked about it over social media with me yesterday. I'm very high on this Carnegie Mellon team. I think that their two losses are going to look really, really good at the end of the year. A loss is a loss, but a loss to who we all think is going to win the WIAC, and then a loss by 1 point to Johns Hopkins is going to look really good. Not as good as Wheaton's loss to 1, loss to 2 in the national rankings, but here's where I think people aren't talking about it. Carnegie Mellon played as perfect of a half of football as you can in the first half, and then played to not lose in the second half. And to talk about, and not to rip off a Band-Aid, Josh, but I did listen last week, and you talked about how for one half of football, everything was just going the right way. And then for the second half of football, it was like a completely different team came out. I'm not going to go that far. I think Carnegie Mellon still really played well. The problem was, and this was the problem against La Crosse, they didn't capitalize in the second half when they had opportunities. That La Crosse game got out of hand for Carnegie Mellon in the third quarter, whereas this game, they were still very much in control going midway through the fourth quarter. I believe I put a tweet out there that said upset alert, and then, Hopkins rattled off 20-some odd points, 21 odd points to win 28-27. Interesting enough, in staying in the Centennial Conference, the other two top teams in that conference, Franklin and Marshall versus Muhlenberg, ended with the same score. Franklin and Marshall gets the 28-27 win over Muhlenberg. My guess would be you're going to get two teams out of the Centennial to make the playoffs. It's going to be Hopkins with the automatic bid. I don't really see anybody else that's going to knock them out of that seat. And then I would guess a Carnegie Mellon-Muhlenberg battle for who gets that at-large bid from there. Moving outside of the the Centennial, but staying on the East Coast, the Breakfast Bowl. Now, I don't know how many people are familiar with the New Jersey area. North Jersey, apparently Taylor ham. South Jersey, pork roll. Pork roll reigns supreme this year for the second year in a row in the second Breakfast Bowl. Rowan defeating Montclair State. Montclair State threw everything they had at Rowan early. They go into halftime with a lead. And then Rowan just came out and kind of really put it together. Coach Pat Ruley and that defense really made things hard for the Redhawks in the second half, just period. So that was a game that I think a lot of people were watching kind of intermittently because the Hopkins game was about the same time. There were a couple of the Wisconsin games were going on. Then you move yourself into the South. For me, it was the Maryville Center game and keeping an eye on Barry and Trinity. I think a lot of people need to start talking about Maryville. They're a 5-0 ball club. They've played very well. They played very, very well this past Saturday. And I think people need to start talking about Barry again. I had them. They've fallen in and out of my poll in the last couple weeks. The loss to Carnegie Mellon kind of dropped them out. You have a Trinity team come in there and you beat a very good Trinity football team. They deserve to be back in there. I think that's a conversation that both of those teams should be in the top 25 and could be kind of sneaky playoff run teams come November and December. Now, I poked fun. Josh, I poked fun at you a little bit, and I poked fun at Tony, and I poked fun at Crew. We were having a lot of beverages by 6:30, 7 o'clock last night. And by 7:15, watching my alma mater in Bethany, West Virginia, in the Green game against St. Vincent, it was very hard to watch them be down 33-0 at halftime. That being said, it easily could have been 33-14. There were two interceptions in the end zone by Bethany that I think could have changed the outcome, especially given the final score is a 57-35 win for St. Vincent. Tale of two tapes. First half, if I was Bethany, Tony, you said it perfectly. Flush it. Don't go back and look at it. Burn the hell out of it. I don't know how it's all digital now, so don't light the computer on fire, but you get the point. Burn that first half of tape. Don't ever go watch it again. The second half of tape, Bethany went out and scored on four of their first 4 drives. So they did figure it out. The interesting stat from that game, and I know I'm talking about a bottom of the PAC game to build up to the top of the PAC, but there was 1,000 yards between the two teams. Dylan Kramer, my stat guy that has really come through. St. Vincent finished with 533 yards. Remember, that's the 57-point team. Bethany had 548 yards. So there was a lot of offense. The defenses took a break. That's okay. We'll come back this week and we'll play better defense from both sides. And that's kind of what you expect at the bottom of the PAC. Is it's going to be high scoring and a little lack thereof of defense. That being said, Bethany also had 3 turnovers. They had a couple of nice interceptions. A lot of things in that second half that Coach Robinson can build on. And that's the end of the Homer portion of the show for me. Roanoke and Randolph-Macon out of the ODAC, they're the two that I'm kind of looking at. Roanoke, I believe, just restarted their program recently. They came away after scoring 14 points in the fourth quarter. They came away with a 24-14 win over Bridgewater. Randolph-Macon handled Everett 77-20. And then, the 2 games in the PAC at the top. I think I've been pretty clear about Grove City and Westminster and W&J. It's kind of their 3. I think Case with the tie to Rowan is really going to hurt them later on down the road. But W&J 24-7, they did exactly what W&J does, especially now. I think they're one of the best 2-loss teams. In fact, when they end up winning their conference at 8-2, I think it's going to be them and Susquehanna that are the two top 2-loss teams, since they're going to end up winning both of them are going to win their conferences. Grove City struggled a little bit with Waynesburg. And I think, David, it might have been you or Matt that pointed out that the fifth-year guys not being around as much, the COVID year guys not being on some of these rosters, you're seeing that balancing back out and whatnot. So I just thought it was very interesting that and not to say anything about Waynesburg. Waynesburg's a good middle of the PAC program, just like Geneva, just like Allegheny, Case. I think Case would maybe be considered in that upper tier of the conference. But when Grove City goes into W&J, you're expecting that score is going to be more reflective of playing somebody that is at the bottom of the conference, and it wasn't. So hats off to Waynesburg. And if anybody, for the Bethany people out there, giving credit to Waynesburg really hurts. So I had to compliment St. Vincent and Waynesburg this week in this show. And so I think I might be getting my degree revoked from Bethany when they find that out. Those are my thoughts on what happened this week. Those aren't my final thoughts, but I want Matt to throw that damn, what was that thing? There was something at the beginning of my whole segment that popped up on my screen there.
So part of the transition there, I get a text from Mr. Soliday, a beautiful text message. Hey, can you flash us talking about the jerseys? So take a look at this beautiful thing.
Look at that head of hair.
Yeah. I don't know where it went.
Tell us about that, buddy.
Yeah.
Is that thing leather? Is that helmet leather?
What was it like playing against Ken Anderson?
I think we had just gotten past the leather, and it was probably just about the time face masks were added to helmets. But, man, you talk about traditional. I am traditional, and, the mesh jerseys, the big shoulder pads. I even had a neck roll once we got into the season. That's preseason photo. It was so early they didn't even have the NCC decal on the side of the helmet yet when we took pictures at the beginning of the season. But, the old red jersey, and we had gray pants with black and red stripes down the side. Yeah, that's classic. That, my friends, is classic.
I like
Little House on the Prairie meets football. I love
it. With friends like us, David. With friends like us.
It's all good, man. Matt, it's all good.
Who's doing final thoughts this week? Myself and somebody else?
You and Crew.
Crew, I will let you take it away.
Yeah, I don't have a lot, to be honest. I'm sure you sent the memo that I was supposed to do final thoughts, but I don't have a ton. I talked about our game already. I will just I did have one thought. I was looking at the top 25, and I think we're getting to the point in the season where it's becoming clear who your legitimate national title teams that could at least make the national title game. And I would probably draw the line because one thing I thought leaving the game and outside of the way that UMHB looked was Hardin Simmons is a good team, but I didn't leave feeling like, whoa, these guys are gonna be, in Canton. I did not leave feeling like they were a Stag Bowl contender by any means. They're always good and they always play us great. That's to be expected. But looking at the top 25, to me, I think there's really 7 teams, or at the most. Obviously, North Central, Mount Union, Johns Hopkins. To me, the 2 best WIAC teams are Whitewater and La Crosse. So that gets you to 5. I think Bethel is a little bit of a sleeper this year, not so much a sleeper now because, we've seen that they're obviously a formidable team. And then outside of that, so that's 6. I would almost draw the line there. I'm not sure why Salisbury is ranked number 5. I've been wondering that the entire year. I know they're, a good triple option team. I thought they were actually better last year. So I don't really know why they're in the conversation, but maybe they'll surprise me. Who knows? So yeah, that's 6 teams. I would say we're kind of boiling it down, at this point in the year. As far as just the eye test, like who looks like they might have it. As far as playing in the Stag Bowl, I would say I've got it down to like 5 or 6 teams.
Now, it's interesting you say that because as I'm sitting here looking at my notes, the last thing that I wrote down last night before I called it quits was right now, as we stand, it's North Central, Mount Union, and everybody else is kind of chasing. I mean, it really seems and that's not a knock on those schools from the WIAC. In fact, the top note from that list is, and I said this to Mikey, it's Wisconsin lacrosse's league to lose. It's been made pretty clear for the first 2 weeks of WIAC play specifically. And then watching Johns Hopkins yesterday, yeah, they are definitely the 3rd, maybe 4th best team. I've heard arguments that you could flip them in the WIACs. You could kind of throw Hardin Simmons in there if you wanted to. They're the 3rd best team in the country for a reason, but there is a big, big gap just from the eye test of Mount and North Central and what that next 2, 3, 4, well, I guess it would be 3, 4, 5. Salisbury, I have them pretty high. I'm kind of going with the same rule that I had for the WIAC. I have Salisbury there. Christopher Newport is kind of the outlier. When that game plays, I don't know that I move Christopher Newport all the way up into an 8-9 spot, but they would move into a 12-13. I think a lot of people last week specifically, we talked as a group about DePauw. DePauw is not, everybody is, I have them in the top 10. A lot of people, it's 12 to 15 range.
Yeah.
So, but I definitely think that we are getting to that point. You make a great point on we're getting there to where it's starting to level out. We kind of have an idea. I know the MPI stuff came out today, and we won't talk about that because I know David and the North Central people get very, very worked up when they see that North Central is not at the top of a list in football, which at the Division III level, it's pretty hard to understand where that comes from. But I think you have a great point on this is where it is. I mean, we're looking at 6 schools that are probably going to make a run, and everybody else is you're going to have to fight your balls off pretty much. Now, that being said, I think Hopkins put a lot of good things on tape for themselves, especially that second half. There's going to be a lot of things that they make adjustments, and up until that Muhlenberg game, I don't think you'll really see them be challenged. You guys talked about it last week with North Central. None of us really expect North Central to be really challenged the rest of the way until we see them in the playoffs. I think that same sentiment can be said now, especially with no John Carroll in the OAC. Marietta having a little bit of struggles this year. I think Ohio Northern would be the only team out of the OAC that the Mount still has to play that could give Mount a little bit of troubles. I don't think they're going to. But it's just an interesting place that Division III football has kind of wound itself here I would call this kind of a midway point. But yeah, I think that spot on there's this category of teams, and then there's the rest.
I would even argue, just personally from what I've seen, I think it's North Central, and then I think it's those other 5, and then you've got like Tier 1, which is North Central by themselves. I just think they're just way too deep, and they're way too talented, and they look like the one and only machine right now in Division III football. And then you've got those 5 for me, the top 2 in the WIAC, Johns Hopkins, Mount Union, maybe throw Bethel in there. And then the gap from them, because like I saw Whitewater play in person this year in Belton, and then I just went and saw the number 7 team in the country now, Hardin-Simmons, play in Abilene. And like it was clear, like Whitewater is a much better football team. They're a deeper football team. They're just better. They're a better team than Hardin-Simmons is, and Hardin-Simmons is right there. So to me, it's North Central. It's about 5 teams vying for who's going to play North Central in the Stag Bowl this year, and then it's everybody else. And so I think realistically, if anybody outside of those 5 other teams, other than North Central, plays in the Stag Bowl, I'll be very surprised.
And then the last thing, my last thoughts, the last of the thoughts is, Pat Coleman and D3football.com make it a point to say that we are not let's not divide ourselves anymore. So I'm going to take that one step further. We are the largest division in collegiate football. And up here in the nosebleeds, we don't divide away from everybody. Bring anybody. Bring a beer, bring some food, hot dogs. One time I saw David take his T-shirt off and start waving it around. He got yelled at by security, and they made him put his shirt back on. But we have a good time up here in the nosebleeds. So if you're interested, come talk to us. We're all right people. We may say things that are a little outlandish, rash, rude at times, but it's all in good fun. We enjoy what we do. We enjoy what others are doing, and yeah. Matt, is there a sponsor that I missed? I see this thing up in the top. Was there somebody that I feel like I didn't give you any room to talk about them guys?
Oh no, we'll drop. I've got the voiceover commercial Tony Britt spotter charts that support. I know myself and Augustina support Josh and what he does in the WIAC for Whitewater.
It's the WIAC.
And but now, it's interesting. You were talking earlier when Shoultz was doing his segment. I heard a little sirens in the background. I thought, ooh, did the police find the undisclosed place that Soliday is, doing his broadcast from? But he's still here. Nobody showed up in some suits and took him away. So false alarm.
Well, you can't see what's off camera. If you not noticed, David keeps looking. He keeps looking to the left. I don't know who's standing there. Blink twice as long as you're okay, David. But before we get off on a whole nother tangent, we will catch you next week, Chuckleheads.